Part 26. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 251. Chapter 251, Retreat to Advance. The old lady quickly fed him a few sips of warm water, gently touched her granddaughter's braids, and explained in a confused voice, "This child is disobedient. I want to carry her away, but she won't stop crying. She wants to stay with you all the time. This is because she knows that you treat her well and miss you." Dongmei also said, "Fu Niu and I will take care of the young master and give him medicine this whole day." Mr. Ye felt very warm in his heart and whispered, "I'm fine. Let's take Fu Niu back to sleep." Mrs. Li nodded. She also felt sorry for her granddaughter. After Mr. Ye drank half a bowl of porridge and took some medicine, she carefully picked up her granddaughter and walked back. Jiyan stayed up all night and all day, but her small body couldn't bear it, so she slept until dawn. Thinking of Mr. Ye, she rolled over and got up. When she opened her eyes, she saw her grandma sitting on the side sewing clothes. She was still a little confused. Mrs. Li was afraid that her granddaughter would be frightened, so she quickly held her in her arms and comforted her gently, "Don't be afraid, Fu Niu, she is at home. Mr. Ye is already well. He has taken porridge and medicine. Don't worry. Grandma will carry you over in a while." Jiyan breathed a sigh of relief, feeling increasingly lethargic and leaning against her grandma's arms. The old lady originally wanted to ask her granddaughter where she got so many silver coins, but when she saw her granddaughter like this, she was reluctant to part with them. She patted her granddaughter gently again and again, and then she dared to sigh softly when she saw that the little girl fell asleep again. Her granddaughter, I don't know where she came from, she is becoming more and more mysterious. She really wanted to open one eye while sleeping, for fear that this girl would come up with something magical on a whim. She is not afraid of causing trouble for the family. Since the family has benefited together, of course they have to suffer together. But she was afraid that her granddaughter would not know the seriousness and her life would be shortened. If the whole family was fine, only her granddaughter would be in trouble. What shall we do then? I can only hope that the seeds of cold melon and cantaloupe will be sown. Next year, many families will plant them, sell them for money, have enough food and clothing, and then think about their own good, and all these blessings will be counted on their granddaughters. Jiyan didn't know that grandma was starting to worry again, so she slept until midnight. After waking up, she completely recovered, hurriedly drank a bowl of porridge, and ran to the next door with a big meat bun in her arms. Mr. Ye's house may have opened the windows to let in the wind, and the smell of blood in the house was much lighter. It is rare that Mr. Ye is also awake and talking to the miracle Dr. Zhang. Jiyan ran into the house, and Dr. Zhang's eyes lit up. He wanted to ask more questions, but he saw Jiyan holding up the meat buns and trying to climb onto the kong. It's a pity that the little fat legs are too short, hanging on the edge of the kong, making squeaking sounds, and can't get up. He was discouraged and stepped forward to give her a hand. Jiyan climbed onto the kong smoothly, turned around and smiled so hard that her eyes narrowed, and thanked her in a sweet voice, "Thank you, Grandpa Zhang." Zhang Shanai spread his hands and responded helplessly to Mr. Ye's funny look. "Forget it, I won't ask. If you don't tell me, I won't be able to guess it, so let's leave it at that. But in the future, if I have any questions, or if the hidden master has any good ideas, you must tell me." Mr. Ye nodded, "Don't worry, this is a good thing to cure diseases and save people. I won't hide anything I can tell you. It's really inconvenient for that expert." Mr. Zhang rolled his eyes and walked out with his hands behind his back. He said he was not angry, but he was still a little frustrated. "I have been squatting in Li's house for more than a year, and I finally managed to catch the master's pigtails, but I still can't find him. I originally thought she was Fu Niu, but how can a fat girl who can't even get up on the edge of a kong be an outsider? Ji-Yan guessed that the old man was looking for him and made a face at his back, making Mr. Ye laugh. Uncle Ye, eat. The good news bun was handed to Mr. Ye's mouth, but Mr. Ye slowly shook his head. Fu Niu, come on, I just drank porridge. Mr. Ye raised his hand to touch Ji-Yan's little head, but he pulled the wound and groaned in pain. Ji-Yan quickly lay down and put his little head next to Mr. Ye's hand. That cute little look made Mr. Ye's heart melt into a puddle of honey. Who wouldn't like such a cute little girl? Fu Niu, my uncle will accept you as his adopted daughter, okay? Ji-Yan was lying on her stomach munching the buns. She almost choked when she heard these words. She blinked twice and asked, Fu Niu has a father, and he is also very good. Mr. Ye smiled even more happily. This child did not dislike poverty and love wealth. Instead, he was filial and grateful. My uncle recognized you as his adopted daughter to protect you, not to take you away. Your father is still your father, and you are still the little granddaughter of the Li family. It's just that there will be one more person to protect you in the future. Even if others find you, even if you are different, I don't dare to do anything to you, understand? Ji-Yan nodded. Of course she understood, she just couldn't help but test it out. Mr. Ye is a good friend, an elder to her, and a protector. But her family is still the most important, and she will not abandon her family for any benefit or anyone. Of course, it would be best if you can have both now. Ye Shan came in from outside. Obviously he had something to say, but when the good news came, he hesitated. Mr. Ye ordered, say it, it doesn't matter. Ye Shan then stepped forward, half kneeling on the ground, trying to make his master look at eye level with him. Sir, the child was delivered to the palace the night before yesterday. At the court this morning, the emperor was furious and ordered Dali Temple to find out the truth about your assassination as soon as possible. In addition, Zhang Wenzuo, the minister of the Ministry of War, took away the job of guarding the dock, but the emperor did not give him any soldier talisman. I just ordered him to take over for the time being. Mr. Ye nodded. Zhang Wenzuo is part of the Queen Mother's party. I'm afraid he thought he had seized the opportunity to make a great contribution. In fact, the barbarians were wiped out by thousands last time, and they are gathering troops to prepare for a counterattack. And winter is about to come, and the barbarians don't know how to grow food. Even if after occupying a large area of land, it was in vain for a year, and there was no harvest. It is even more important to move the plan to Jiangnan. When the war at the riverside dock becomes tense, those old foxes in the court will be anxious, otherwise they will live a comfortable life in Jiangnan. After a long time, I won't even think about regaining the rivers and mountains. Ye Shan sighed, with a hint of disapproval in his expression. Even if the young master wants to retire for a while, he can't take such a risk. Fortunately, Dr. Zhang arrived in time, and the villagers risked their lives to rescue him. Otherwise, the young master would have been really vicious this time. A lot of luck. Mr. Ye coughed lightly and knew that he was being reckless this time, but he had made careful arrangements in advance and did not expect that something went wrong at the critical moment. Okay, luckily there is no danger. Send a message to the Marquis Mansion, asking the housekeeper to send ingredients here every 2 days. I want to recover here. Ye Shan quickly agreed and asked, Master Ho, do you want to transfer some people from the Ho Mansion? No, you are enough. Tell the steward to arrange for people to deliver the ingredients, and select people who are loyal and strict-tongued. Yes. After the master and servant reached an agreement, Ye Shan went down to get busy. Ji-Yan lay next to Mr. Ye and stayed with him, thinking about it in her heart. She had always known that Mr. Ye wanted to take back half of the country, but she never expected that he would be so eager and determined that he would risk his life or death. Think again about the potatoes and corn in the space, whether you should take them out to him in advance. As long as arrangements are made properly, in 2 years, the people will be well fed, the national strength will be restored, and there will be enough military rations, and then it will not be difficult to fight back to the north of the Yangtze River and defeat the barbarians. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 252. Chapter 252. A visitor in the middle of the night. Seeing that she was silent, Mr. Ye blinked her big eyes and her long eyelashes trembled. He guessed that she was thinking, so he smiled and said, "What are you thinking about, Funiu? Are you worried that Dr. Zhang will embarrass you?" He touched the little girl with his elbow and comforted her, "Don't worry, I've already persuaded Dr. Zhang and he won't ask any more questions. If you don't want to talk about anything, just pretend to be stupid. You are only 2 years old, and no one can treat you how, do you understand?" "Understood," Jiyan nodded with a smile, moved forward, lay next to Mr. Ye's ear, and whispered, "Uncle, please get well soon. I have prepared 2 good things for you. Keep them for your liking." "Really? I'm injured and I still need a gift." Young Master Ye smiled and narrowed his eyes. He didn't care in his heart, thinking that the little girl was thinking about some gadget again, so he said, "Okay, Uncle will be fine soon." Yian wrinkled her little nose, guessing what he was thinking, and made up her mind to give him a big surprise and impress him. Although Mr. Ye's fever subsided and he could eat, he was seriously injured and fell asleep again after a while. Jiyan yawned and wandered around the courtyard for a while, leaning on his side and snoring together. The village chief and others finally came in to take a look, but left without saying a word. As dusk falls, Broken Gold Beach also ushered in a rare moment of quiet. Most of the guests in the valley have left, and some of the remaining ones have had their dinner, leaving a few people to take care of them, so there is no need to worry too much. The village is brightly lit, and every household is busy cooking and eating, making it very lively. The millet brought back from the fields is put into the granary without threshing. In this way, the grain is stored for a long time, and there is no fear of insect rot for 2 or 3 years. When we were in Qingshui village, everyone borrowed sorghum from the Li family to save their lives. They had been thinking about repaying the debt, but now they had a chance. During the day, the village chief made the decision, and half of the millet was given to the Li family to pay off the debt, which was guaranteed to be only a little more. Li Laoer, on behalf of the Li family, accepted it. In fact, every family is not short of this small amount of food, especially the Li family. But it is easy to borrow and repay, and it is not difficult to borrow again. The promises you have made must be fulfilled. Every family was also happy, and they grinded some of the remaining millet, and each family divided 2 or 3 kilograms to eat freshly. The mountainous land was newly reclaimed, and fruit trees were planted. The soil was not fertile enough, so the millet grown was not very good, but it was always the first good harvest in the village. Tonight, everyone cooked millet porridge, washed a few sweet potatoes, peeled and cut them into pieces, threw them into the millet porridge pot, and cooked them together until they were well cooked, sweet and soft, which the elderly and children loved to eat. After dinner, the men on duty put on thicker clothes, carried hatchets, joined their companions, and began to patrol around. Originally, old men like Uncle Zhao were responsible for keeping watch at night in the village. But in the past few days, the Marquis was injured and assassinated. Everyone was worried that someone might do harm to the Marquis. Therefore, the more than 30 young men in the village were divided into 4 shifts, and the 2 shifts were switched every night for night patrols. Lu Laozi and Li Laozi each have a day in charge. It is Li Laozi's turn tonight, but Lu Laozi can't sleep at the moment, so he also goes for a walk. When they were tired from walking, everyone lit a bonfire at the entrance of the village, burned sweet potatoes, and chatted. The autumn night is not too cold, but it is also very chilly. There is a bonfire lighting up, and everyone is very relaxed. They talk about cleaning up the fields and rushing to plant a crop of autumn vegetables to save them for the winter. Li Laosi took out a sweet potato, stood up and said, Fu Niu may not be asleep yet, I will send one to her. Lu Biatu responded, let's see if Mr. Ye is feeling better again. Is there anything you want to eat? I know, Mr. Ye must not be hungry, so Hong Ying made chicken soup and noodles at night. As he was talking, several horses suddenly ran over from a distance. Everyone immediately grabbed hatchets. Before they could start their defensive formation, someone immediately rushed over and went straight to Li Laosi. Li Laosi swung his knife, but the man dodged and kicked him in the chest. Li Laosi grabbed the man's ankles and threw him out. Lu Biatu stepped forward to meet him. He seized the opportunity and slashed at the man with a knife. Seeing that the man couldn't dodge, someone else immediately pounced on him. 2 versus 2, the two sides hit one spot for a while. Lu Biatu is good at martial arts, but his strength is not as good as Li Laosi. Li Laosi's martial arts moves are poor, but his strength can make up for his shortcomings. The rest of the villagers carried hatchets and stood behind them. Even though their faces turned pale with shock, they did not take a step back. It took a long time, at least dozens of rounds. A majestic voice said, "Okay, step back." The two strange men in black stopped their moves and quickly retreated. Another person came forward, and everyone could see clearly through the firelight that he was Yeshan. "Boss Lu, Fourth Master Li, everything is a misunderstanding. A distinguished person is coming to visit our young master, please make it convenient for you." Li Laosi and Lu Biatu stared at Yeshan coldly, weighing the truth of his words. The two people just now are very skilled. What if Yeshan betrays him and they lead the wolf into the house and bring danger to Master Yet? It was obvious that Yeshan was also aware of their concerns, and he added, "The nobleman is from Zindu, and the young master also knows about it, so you can rest assured." Li Laosi and Lu Biatu looked at each other, thought for a while, and then said, "Then you can dismount and we will you there." It is said to be an escort, but it is actually an escort. The two of them brought the villagers, surrounded 5 or 6 people and Yeshan, and slowly walked into the village and arrived at the Ye family yard. There were 5 or 6 people who came, all dressed in black clothes and black trousers for the night. There was only one person wearing a blue brocade gown and a curtain hat to cover his face. He was obviously the one who made the decision. Li Laosi signaled Lu Biatu to leave the men in black outside, and he personally led the man and Yeshan into the house. Hashan couldn't laugh or cry, and wanted to explain a few words, but the man in the brocade gown waved his hand. Mr. Ye and Jiyan slept all afternoon and didn't feel sleepy at the moment. Jiyan took a fruit, dug out the pulp with a spoon, and fed it to Mr. Ye. She was a child and had little strength in her hands. In the end, the food she put into Mr. Ye's mouth was not wasted. Orange Mrs. Li and Dongmei were sitting on one side doing needlework. Mr. Ye's wound should not be covered to make it too hot, but he could not always lie shirtless like this, as it would easily get cold on his shoulders. So, the two of them thought about sewing a backless middle coat. Jiyan thought of the styles that young girls liked in the past life. In this time and space, Mr. Ye, a military prince, was the first to try them on. She couldn't help but giggle. She managed to scoop up a little pulp with the spoon in her hand, and hit Mr. Ye's nose. Mr. Ye didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just when he was about to push the spoon away, Mr. Li escorted Yeshan and his guests in. Mr. Ye glanced at the figure of the visitor and was startled. He wanted to get up but endured it. Li Laosi asked immediately, "Sir, Yeshan said this person is here to visit you." Mr. Ye nodded and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I know this person. He is indeed an honored guest." Li Laosi breathed a sigh of relief, felt a little embarrassed, scratched the back of his head, and saluted the guests. "I'm sorry, nobleman. Mr. Ye is injured, so we have to be more careful." The man put his hands behind his back and just nodded without saying a word or taking off his hat. Even so, everyone couldn't help but feel awe at this man's majesty. This must be a person with high authority, otherwise there would not be such coercion. Li Laozi and Yeshan retreated. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 253. Chapter 253, Hug the Thigh, It's the Right Time. This man was also looking at Mrs. Lee and others carefully, and finally smiled lightly. Brother is injured this time, please protect and take care of me. Orange Mrs. Lee and Dong Mei hurriedly got down to the ground and said with a smile, You're welcome, noble man. Mr. Ye is the savior of our whole village. He is injured, so we should help him. After saying that, she took the sewing basket and said, We won't disturb the nobleman and the young master talking. She wanted to hug her granddaughter, but Ji Yin ran to the Kong, making her eyes wide open with anger. Mr. Ye smiled and said, Auntie, don't worry about her. Fu Niu is very good. I'll keep an eye on her. You can go and rest. Okay, the old lady could only respond, and just as she was about to walk out, the nobleman said, I heard that your chicken noodle soup is delicious. Can you cook me a bowl? Mrs. Lee immediately smiled and said, Okay, if you don't mind, I will ask my daughter-in-law to serve it. The old lady and Dong Mei also retreated out together, and for a while only Mr. Ye and the nobleman were left in the room, as well as a little girl who was blinking her big eyes and pretending to be cute, but actually she was screaming and excited in her heart. The person who came was called Brother Ye Gongzi. He was very noble and came to visit in the dark of night. Apart from that person, there was no other choice. This is the thickest and most precious thigh in the world. If you don't hug your thighs now, then when will you wait? She ran to the end of the Kong, took out 2 cantaloupes with seeds thrown out under the cover of the box, then ran back to Mr. Ye, and gave a cantaloupe to the distinguished guest with a smile. The distinguished guest was stunned for a moment and reached out to take it. Ji Yin gave him another small spoon. Then she threw the fruit and dug melons for Mr. Ye. Cantaloupe has a soft flesh and is easy to dig, but it is also much sweeter than the fruit. Ji Yin took 4 or 5 mouthfuls before one of them was delivered to Mr. Ye's mouth, and the rest went into his own stomach. It's so delicious, her little hands have more ideas than her brain, I can't help it. Mr. Ye drank too much medicinal soup and his mouth was very bitter. He also liked the smell of melon, but unfortunately he could only watch the melon meat entering the little girl's mouth. The nobleman saw it and couldn't help laughing. He took off his curtain hat and took a bite of the cantaloupe. He felt it was sweeter than anything he had eaten before. Ji Yin heard the laughter, looked up at Jin Thai, then looked at Mr. Ye, and then he understood. Her little face turned red, she threw away the spoon, crawled into the nobleman's arms and hid. The nobleman laughed louder, This fat girl is so cute, no wonder you love her as your own daughter. I finally have some free time, so I have to stay here for a few days. Mr. Ye had no choice but to respond, I originally wanted to recognize her as my adopted daughter, but now that I see her, I'm afraid she's an unfilial daughter. Ji Yin peeked out her little head, the golden bell on her braid swaying, and argued angrily, Fu Niu is filial, Fu Niu is the most filial. The nobleman couldn't help but fiddle with the pair of small golden bells and wiped her mouth. Ji Yin raised her little face and smiled proudly. Seeing her happy smile, the nobleman felt even more relieved. He took off the jade pendant from his waist and gave it to her to play with. Then he said, Cousin, this time is too dangerous. Don't do it again in the future. Mr. Ye nodded, it was supposed to be foolproof. It was all done by my own hands, but I didn't expect that the dagger was coated with medicine. In the past few days, I have been tortured to find out what happened. No, the nobleman shook his head. These 4 people have been recruited into the secret guard for many years and have never made any mistakes, so they were chosen to pretend to be assassins this time. Someone must have taken advantage of them and tampered with their daggers. They didn't know anything about it, and they didn't betray it. Have you found out all the people on the Queen Mother's side in the army? But I usually doubt those too. Exactly, I sent Zhang Wenzuo to the dock this time and dealt with them together when we went to war. Even if you recover well, the situation in Jiangbei will not worsen for only 2 or 3 months. Those old foxes in the court have always been good at making peace with each other. This time, when I was assassinated, we got rid of a few of them and shook the mountain to shake the tiger. They can be honest for a while. The two talked slowly, and Ji Yan played with the jade pendant obediently without causing any trouble. After a while, Mrs. Li knocked on the door and delivered chicken noodles. Mr. Ye and the nobleman stopped talking. Ji Yan rolled her eyes and stuffed the jade pendant directly into her mouth. Her cheeks were swollen like a little hamster. Dong Mei set up a small table, and Mrs. Li helped serve soup noodles and side dishes. Seeing her granddaughter acting like this, the old lady was frightened, and quickly grabbed her granddaughter, trying to take the food out of her mouth. Good News shook his head and hid behind the nobleman, but refused to give it. The nobleman couldn't help but laugh. It's just a little thing, give it to the little girl to play with. Mrs. Li couldn't see clearly what was stuffed in her granddaughter's mouth. When the nobleman said this, Mr. Ye also nodded. She let it go and pointed at her granddaughter's forehead from a distance. This girl, did you starve to death in your last life? She stuffed everything into her mouth. She obviously ate fatter than anyone else, and she was so greedy. I'm afraid I'll kill you like a pig during the Chinese New Year. Ji Yan grinned and wanted to smile, but drool dripped down in strings, making everyone laugh. The nobleman sat cross-legged on the bed and ate noodles. He ate a few salty side dishes and drank all the noodle soup. At the end, he started to praise, no wonder my brother is willing to come and stay for a while. The food here is so delicious. Mrs. Li was enthusiastic and said with a smile, that nobleman will come here often. We ordinary people don't have anything good, just home-cooked food. My daughter-in-law's ancestors had an imperial chef, and her skills are pretty good. That's better than the old master. The skill is indeed much better than that of the royal chef. The nobleman praised Ji Yan again, then patted Ji Yan's little head, went to the ground to tidy up his clothes. Brother, take good care of yourself, I'll go back first. Mr. Ye stood up and said, be careful on the road. Don't go out again. It's not safe. Ji Yan pulled out the jade pendant from her mouth, stepped forward and hugged the nobleman's neck, and shook the jade pendant at Grandma. Grandma, exchange for fruit, exchange for fruit. Old Mrs. Li glared angrily. Young girl who is obsessed with money actually robbed a nobleman of his jade pendant. Mr. Ye couldn't help but laugh. Auntie, listen to Fu Niu and bring some fruits to my brother. His family is not short of them, but they are not as delicious as ours. Hey, okay, I'll go pack some right away. Mrs. Li agreed and went next door. Originally, Dr. Zhang said Mr. Ye could take a few bites of the fruit, so Ji Yan took out 2 baskets from the space. In the past 2 days, my family has eaten a few, and there is still a lot left. Mrs. Li was afraid that it would be difficult to carry them on the road, so she found a clean cloth bag and packed a dozen pears and a dozen apples. When he finally handed it to the nobleman, he also told him, next year there will be more fruit on the mountain. When the nobleman comes again, we will go to the orchard and pick and eat now. The nobleman responded with a smile, gave the bag to Yeshan, and then put on the curtain hat. The old lady led them out, and when they reached the door of the yard, it happened that the village chief heard the commotion and came over to take a look. Hung high lanterns sway in the wind. The nobleman got on his horse. The evening breeze blew up the veil of his hat, and the light shone right on his face, allowing the village chief to see clearly. The nobleman nodded to him and led his men and horses away. Old Mrs. Lee combed her broken hair, turned around and saw the village chief, and smiled and said, "The village chief is here, don't worry, this is Mr. Yes' younger brother, he is here to visit the sick, he is not a bad person." However, the village chief made no movement for a long time. The old lady was confused and stepped forward to pat the village chief's arm. Unexpectedly, the village chief sat down on the ground and exclaimed, "Oh my God!" End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 254. Chapter 254, Protecting Together. Mrs. Lee was startled and quickly helped the old man. "Brother, what's wrong with you?" The village chief raised his hand to point at the group of people leaving, but he was still in awe and could only take a few deep breaths to calm down. He turned around again and looked at Li Laosi, Lu Biatu, and several villagers, and he swallowed his words again. "I just think, these people look quite fierce and I thought they were bad people." Li Laosi, Lu Biatu and others all laughed. "The village chief is right, we thought they were bad guys just now. But these people were brought here by Yeshan, saying they are Mr. Yes brothers." Mrs. Lee also smiled and agreed, comforting the village chief. "Yes, this nobleman is very easygoing. He even ate a bowl of chicken noodle soup and said that Hong Ying's cooking skills are better than the imperial chef." The old lady was proud of her daughter-in-law, but the village chief felt weak after hearing this, and made a random excuse to chase away the villagers. "You go and continue patrolling, I will discuss something with Lao Si and Lu Biatu." The villagers didn't take it seriously and left laughing and gossiping. For a time, only Mrs. Lee, Li Laosi and Lu Biatu were left in front of the door. The village chief quickly pulled them together and whispered, You don't know who the nobleman was just now." He raised his hand and pointed hard at the black sky above his head. Mrs. Lee and the other three blinked a few times and didn't understand for a long time. The village chief stamped his feet anxiously. "It's the one from the palace." Old Mrs. Lee took a breath of air and her legs were a little weak. Li Laosi and Lu Biatu's expressions changed even more. They had had a fight with someone just now. "It turns out they didn't use all their strength just now. I thought we won the battle," Lu Biatu said in a low voice. The focus of warriors is always so strange. He didn't care about the person's identity. Instead, he cared about winning or losing, and that he had just been played. Li Laosi took a deep breath, thought carefully about what was disrespectful, and said, "I didn't dare to look carefully last time in the court. I really didn't recognize it just now. However, I guess the nobleman came here today and didn't want to make it public. Let's just pretend you don't know him." Old Mrs. Lee held onto the door frame and said, "You continue to work. Mr. Ye is fine here. I'll go in and take a look." After saying that, she walked crookedly back to the courtyard. As soon as she entered the house, she saw her granddaughter carrying the jade pendant and laughing loudly. An idea flashed in her mind, and she understood it at that time. "Fu Niur, you girl, do you know that nobleman?" Mrs. Lee stepped forward and hugged her granddaughter. She was a little scared because she was afraid that her granddaughter would the jade pendant. She was not angry, but she couldn't help being proud. She was proud that her granddaughter was really smart and discovered the identity of the nobleman earlier than they all. Jiyan didn't want to admit that she recognized the golden thigh, so she shamelessly cheated on him with a jade pendant. She hugged her grandma's neck with a smile and tried her best to act cute and good. "Nay, Fu Niu is thirsty, Fu Niu wants to drink water." The old lady lowered her head and nudged her with her forehead, but still got up to pour the water. Jiyan obediently took a bowl of water and drank water. Mr. Ye motioned to Dongmei to guard the door and then said, "Have you guessed the identity of the guest just now?" Mrs. Lee waved her hand. It wasn't me, it was the village chief who heard the noise, came over to take a look, and recognized the noble man. Mr. Ye nodded and said with a smile, "Don't worry, aunt. Although my cousin has a noble status, he has had many twists and turns since childhood. I am the only relative of his mother's family. Over the years, I have always tried my best to assist him, so he treat me very kindly. Now that I am recuperating here, he will not be angry even if the family is slighted to him. What's more, he just had a big bowl of chicken noodle soup, so he is obviously happy." "That's true," the old lady couldn't help but laugh. "He also said that Hong Ying's cooking skills are better than those of the imperial chef." Mr. Ye lay on Xian Ruan's pillow and said, "Don't worry about the jade pendant in Fu Niu's hand. It's just an ordinary jade pendant without a carved dragon, so it doesn't count as a token. In addition, I have something to discuss with my aunt." "What's the matter?" "Tell me." Mrs. Lee pulled the thin quilt and covered him, carefully avoiding the injury on her back. Mr. Ye held Fu Niu's chubby little feet and said, "Auntie, I was seriously ill before and accidentally came to your house. I almost died. It was Fu Niu who saved me. At that time, I knew there was something magical about this child. I helped her cover up several times after that." Old Mrs. Lee immediately remembered the silver coins her granddaughter had taken out a few days ago. "Did she ask you for silver?" "No, it's Fu Niu who has some good stuff. It's not convenient for us to sell it at home, so I entrusted Dong Mei to sell it and got a lot of money." When Mr. Ye said this, he saw Ji Yan blinking at him crazily. She wished that her whole little body followed suit and she almost plunged into the tea bowl in front of her. Mr. Ye couldn't help but laugh and said, "I can't say how much it sold specifically, but don't worry, auntie, Fu Niu is smart and won't cause trouble for the family." Mrs. Lee picked up her granddaughter. She wanted to hit her but was reluctant, so she could only slap her on the little buttocks. Ji Yan twisted her little body like a silkworm baby, swaying back and forth in grandma's arms. Finally, she coaxed the old lady to smile, and then quietly breathed a sigh of relief. The old lady tied her granddaughter's pigtails again and couldn't help but sigh again. "Mr. Ye, you also know that our family is just an ordinary farmer with no ability. To tell you the truth, I can't help but worry about it when I go to bed. Good luck and bad luck are intertwined, and I'm afraid that if something happens to this child, she won't be able to do anything. The loss of a hair will make our whole family miserable. If you have cherished our friendship for so long, you will definitely help us protect Fu Niu more in the future. And, this is what it should be. Counting this time, Fu Niu has saved me twice. No matter what, I have to protect her. Just now, the noble lady came over, and I mentioned that I would accept Fu Niu as my adopted daughter. I don't know what you think." Seeing the old lady's expression change, Mr. Ye quickly said, "Auntie, don't worry too much. My status is both noble and dangerous. No one can guarantee that it will remain the same for the rest of my life. After all, being with you is like a companion." He didn't say the last word, but the old lady understood it. She didn't understand how things changed in the court, but she had heard it said in the play that the most ruthless emperor's family was the one. She became worried and quickly advised, "Master Ye, don't say that. You are still young. In a few years, you will find an opportunity to resign and come back and live a peaceful life in the village." Mr. Ye shook his head, with an inexplicable light in his eyes. "Auntie, I don't plan to marry and have children for the time being, at least until I regain half of the rivers and mountains in the north of the Yangtze River. Therefore, I accept Fu Niu as my adopted daughter. I will live for one day. Can protect her for one day. If I'm unlucky and die in battle, that noble man will feel guilty about me and put all his blessings on Fu Niu. With this, even if Fu Niu is a little different, it won't matter. Someone would dare to say this or harm her." Mrs. Lee's eyes turned red when she heard this, and she waved her hands repeatedly. Mr. Ye, you can't do this. Fu Niu is still protected by us, so you need to be well and nothing will happen to you. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 255. Chapter 255 Special Skills. Ji-Yan also stepped forward and gently hugged Mr. Ye's neck. Originally, she thought that Mr. Ye recognized her as his adopted daughter because he wanted to give her a title, but she didn't expect that he had such long-term plans. He was protecting her with his life and deeds. Uncle is the most powerful, he will definitely win the battle, and then Fu Niu will support you in your old age. Mr. Ye smiled, raised his hand with difficulty, and patted her back. Okay, but there are too many people who rely on you to support them in their old age. Remember, when you divide the fruits, just give your uncle the biggest and sweetest one. Hearing these words, Ms. Li wiped her tears and couldn't help laughing. Ji-Yan is also blushing. Why can't she get over the old age issue? She is just a little baby, so she can't be said to be a cow or a horse, or be married to her. Just joking, it's settled. Old Ms. Li said again, if this matter is not urgent, just wait. My boss's injury is almost healed. When he recognizes his ancestor and returns to the clan, we can set up a few banquets. At that time, let Fu Niu kowtow to you and serve tea. Recognize this family. Mr. Li nodded, listen to my aunt and don't be in a hurry. I need to recuperate and can stay at home for 2 months. Okay, it's rare for you to rest for so long. The rest of our village is quiet. Don't worry about anything. The most important thing is to take good care of your body. The old lady felt a little distressed. Mr. Ye was only a few months younger than the second son, but he lived a very tiring life and had too many burdens. She touched Mr. Ye's forehead and was startled. Oh, why are you feeling hot again? Ji-Yan also touched Mr. Ye's forehead and it was indeed hot to the touch. Old Ms. Li immediately called Dong Mei and went to find Dr. Zhang. Magic Dr. Zhang didn't know if he hadn't slept for the past 2 days. His eyes were frighteningly red. He reached out to lift the quilt and opened the strips of cloth wrapping the injury. The skin and flesh that were originally sutured were now swollen, and the threads buried in the flesh were vaguely stained with pus. Ji-Yan's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly hugged Dong Mei's neck and whispered a few words in her ear. Dong Mei stepped forward and said to Divine Dr. Zhang, Dr. Zhang, please quickly remove the sutures. The skin below has grown in. The reason why the top is so red and swollen is because the sutures cannot grow into the skin. Nonsense, no thread can grow into the skin. I knew this was a temporary solution the day before yesterday. But I have to say that sewing the wound closed like this is still much better than leaving the mouth open. The skin underneath is closed, once the swelling is taken care of, it will be fine. Zhang Shinai was nagging, but his hands were not slow. He cut off the thread and began to pull it out. There was pus for lubrication, so it was easy to pull out. But Mr. Ye still groaned in pain, and his forehead was covered with sweat. Ms. Li and Ji-Yan were both distressed. They took cloths and kept wiping him while comforting him. It will be fine soon, soon. Mr. Ye wanted to speak, but his lips were trembling and he couldn't speak. Ji-Yan ran to the end of the kong, took the freeze-dried powder from the space, melted it in warm water, and carefully handed it to Mr. Ye. Uncle, if you drink it, your illness will be cured. Mr. Ye tried his best to pull the corner of his mouth and drank it all in a few sips. Fortunately, it didn't take long for all the cotton threads to be taken out. Shenji Zhang quickly applied another layer of green ointment on the wound. The smell was particularly fresh, making everyone feel refreshed after sniffing it. Mr. Ye also breathed a sigh of relief. This ointment is very refreshing. Of course, this is my special skill, Dr. Zhang said proudly. When everyone saw him like this, they all praised him and made him even happier. Soon, the wound was taken care of, and Mr. Ye was sweating all over. Mrs. Lee and Dong Mei helped wipe away the sweat and changed into clean middle clothes. Dr. Zhang yawned and was about to go out. Dong Mei suddenly remembered that she had forgotten a sentence just now and said, "Mr. Zhang, it is said that there is a membrane in the sheep's intestines. After it is dried, it can be sewn into the skin and flesh without pus. The skin and flesh grow together." Seriously, Dr. Zhang jumped 3 feet high in surprise. Suturing is extremely effective in treating trauma, but the thread cannot grow into the skin, and redness, swelling, and pus are difficult to deal with. If we can solve this problem, everything will be foolproof. He ran out like a gust of wind. Needless to say, he started a new round of experiments. Mrs. Lee was worried that Mr. Ye would keep having a fever at night, so she hugged Jian and slept next door, so that when Dong Mei was too busy, she could help in time. Fortunately, Dr. Zhang's ointment was reliable. After drinking the decoction and taking anti-inflammatory tablets, Mr. Ye had a low-grade fever all night, and the fever was completely gone when he got up early. Jian counted a certain brand of freeze-dried immunity-boosting powder that she had saved in the space, and there were 7 or 8 left. She was cruel and left 4 at the bottom of the box. The rest was mixed with water several times and was given to Mr. Ye to drink. People in the village get up early to go to work and are used to asking in front of the courtyard gate, "Is Mr. Ye feeling better?" The old lady happened to go back to the house next door to pick up something. She didn't hide it, so she said, "Maybe the wound didn't grow well. I had a fever again last night, it's better now." A villager immediately said, "I heard that drinking pigeon soup is the best for healing wounds. Do you want to kill some wild pigeons for Mr. Ye? It's best to ask Lu Biao to lead them. We can't do it when it comes to hunting. I know where there are wild pigeons. I saw a few of them last time I went to chop down trees." While everyone was talking, they went to look for Li Laozi and Lu Biao. In the afternoon, there was an extra cage in the Ye family's yard. There were 7 or 8 pigeons in the cage, cooing non-stop. Tao Hongying came back early from the valley, slaughtered the pigeons and made soup in a casserole. After a while, I consulted Dr. Zhang, added 2 more medicinal ingredients, and finally served Mr. Ye's dinner on the table. Mr. Ye was lying on his stomach. He had no appetite, but he still drank 2 bowls. Mrs. Lee looked at it with a smile, very happy, and said with a smile, "Yes, that's it. Eat more and drink more, so that you can get better quickly." Jian ran in from outside, with a faint smell of fishy mutton on her body. She wanted to climb onto the Kong, but her belly was too round, which really delayed things, so she had to ask her grandma for help. "Grandma, help me." Mrs. Lee carried her granddaughter to the Kong and chatted and joked with Mr. Ye. Dr. Zhang bought 2 sheep from somewhere. He only wanted the intestines and the mutton and gave it to Hongying. There were many people in the village, so Hongying simply made sheep soup. The taste was so fragrant that guests in the valley rushed to buy it. It was really hard to save a pot for each family. Fu Niu is a greedy girl, so she drank a lot. Jian grinned, bared her little white teeth, rubbed her belly, and burped, making Mr. Ye and Mrs. Lee both laugh. Li Lao came in from outside and called to the old lady, "Mom, I'll talk to Mr. Ye. You can go back and have a hot meal." The old lady saw that Mr. Ye looked good and felt relieved, so she gave a few instructions and went back. Li Lao glanced at the good news. The little girl was lying next to Mr. Ye, playing with a jade pendant and crossing her legs, looking very comfortable. He couldn't help but touch his niece's pigtails, and then said, "Mr. Ye, I heard from my mother that you want to accept Fu Niu as your adopted daughter." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 256. Chapter 256 Easily. Mr. Ye nodded, thinking that he was worried about being robbed of his niece, so he said, "Don't worry, I won't take Funiu away. I just come to visit occasionally. Maybe I will give Funiu a title in the future." Li Laoer quickly waved his hand, then pulled up a chair, sat next to young Master Ye, and whispered, "Mr. Ye, I'm not worried about this. Our family is planning something, and I'm afraid it will have an impact on the young master. I thought I'd like to say a few words in advance, so that the young master can listen." "What's the matter? Someone is bullying you," Mr. Ye frowned. Li Laoer shook his head and sighed, "It's about our eldest brother." After that, he explained the matter carefully, and finally said, "I'm afraid my mother won't be able to bear it. Now she even hides it from the third and fourth children. We don't ask the eldest brother to bring back any money or property. I just want him to be safe, plead guilty, and return to his family. But the eldest brother is not willing to give in and insists on revenge. The Wang family is here in Zindu, and the family has a big business and deep roots. I am afraid that if the eldest brother fails to take revenge, it will lead to a counterattack from the Wang family, just in case." "There is no chance." Mr. Ye, with a dark face, interrupted him. "A murder must be paid with a life, and a debt must be repaid with money. This is an axiom known to everyone in the world. The Wang family robs other people's sons, takes them as sons-in-law, and hurts people with meritorious status. This is a violation of national law. Don't say that the Wang family is just a small aristocratic family. Even the emperor's relatives must bow their heads and obey the law." Li Laoer nodded. "It is said that the Wang family is now very close to other aristocratic families. Mr. Wen has recently been looking for details about the Wang family and wants to force the Wang family to stand aside." Mr. Ye heard the worry in his tone and comforted him, "Don't worry, if it were other times, I wouldn't have been able to help at the moment, but now I was stabbed and seriously injured, and Dali Temple is tracking down the person behind the scenes, involving the Wang family. It's so easy. The Wang family has too much time to take care of itself, so naturally it cannot take care of a small branch. In addition, if the Wang family is smart and even participated in what happened that year, they will naturally guess the cause of the disaster, and maybe take the initiative to plead guilty and take care of Wang Yi, and you will not need it." The family was in trouble at the Yamen. Li Laoer's eyes lit up when he heard this. They had been planning for a long time and acted cautiously. They didn't expect it to be so simple with Mr. Ye. Mr. Ye called Dong Mei, "Take the second gentleman to see Yeshan and tell Yeshan and the 3 secret guards to cooperate fully and report to me at any time." "Yes, Sir." Dong Mei agreed quickly, and Li Laoer stood up, bowed deeply, and said sincerely, "Thank you, Lord Marquis. Second brother, you're welcome. We are a family. You risked your life to bring me back, and I helped the eldest brother get home. This is what I should do." Mr. Ye raised his hand to help him, not daring to stretch the wound. Ji Yin sat up at some point and nodded, Yeah, we are a family." Her chubby face was trembling as she nodded, which made Li Laoer laugh. He stretched out his hand to pinch his niece, and then he went out relaxedly. Ji Yin quickly reached behind his back and took out a cantaloupe and a spoon. This time she scooped out the melon flesh and put it all into Mr. Ye's mouth, which made Mr. Ye laugh so hard, but he also ate all the cantaloupe. It was extremely sweet. 3 to 5 days passed by. Dr. Zhang was addicted to catgut, and he did not forget to change Mr. Ye's dressing and make a medicinal soup. Mr. Ye is in good health and can slowly sit up. Li Laozi and Lu Biatu occasionally lifted the chair and put him under the eaves to bask in the sun. When everyone has free time, they will come over and talk together. Ji Yin has almost grown up in the Ye family and is a qualified companion to play, eat, and chat with. It actually allowed Mr. Ye to enjoy the happy days of having his children around his knees. Seeing that her granddaughter was well behaved and not making trouble, Mrs. Lee felt relieved a little, so she took her free time and hurriedly started pickling autumn vegetables. Pick cucumbers, eggplants, beans, and the like that are about to fall off the shelves in the vegetable garden, wash them and make them into various pickles, which are a good helper with porridge in winter. Green onions should also be pulled out, the rotten leaves removed, dried in the sun, a few roots put together, the leaves rolled up, placed under the courtyard wall to dry naturally for a few days, and then sent to the warehouse for storage. Wash the mustard greens, cut off the roots, and throw them into a tank of salt water. When you want to eat them, you can take them out and cut them into pieces. The various beans that are interplanted outside the garden must also be cut back, dried in the sun, and collected. Hope is sown in spring, and harvest will be abundant in autumn. No matter how tired you are, you will still feel happy. Seeing that there was nothing going on at home, Li Lauer wondered what was going on in the city. That day he took Yeshan to see Mr. Wen, and Mr. Wen arranged everything after that. He didn't know what was wrong with his eldest brothers pretending to be ill, how his business was going, and he couldn't discuss it with his family, so he went to the city to buy pen and ink on the pretext of asking Mr. Wen for a few words. Of course, Mrs. Lee would not stop her. She took some extra money for her son, packed 2 pairs of shoes, and told her son, "These shoes are for Mr. Wen. You can buy some snacks and the like. Don't go empty-handed. Come along, look at Mr. Wen." This was exactly what Li Lauer had in mind, so he quickly agreed and entered the city. It is said that the Wen family was also a famous scholarly family when they were in Kyoto. Now they have moved to Zindu and bought a 5-story mansion, not far from the Liu family. Li Lauer carried his things and arrived in front of Wen's house. When he saw 2 concierges sitting lazily by the steps, basking in the sun, he stepped forward and smiled. "Brothers, I'm here to visit Mr. Wen, please help spread the word." As he spoke, he stuffed a handful of copper coins. The 2 concierges were polite. They stood up and asked, "Which Mr. Wen are you going to visit?" "Our Wen family comes from a scholarly family. From the old master to the young master, we are all gentlemen." Li Lauer was stunned for a moment, thought for a moment, and then said, "The Mr. Wen I'm looking for is the one who serves as the imperial censor in the court." The 2 porters looked at each other, sat back, and began to chase people away with cold faces. "We don't have Mr. Wen at home, please leave quickly." Li Lauer frowned, not understanding what was going on with them. When he was about to talk again, a carriage stopped beside him. Someone opened the window and said, "Mr. Er, why are you here? Get in the car quickly." Li Lauer turned around and saw that it was Luz Haiheng. He looked happy and turned around to get in the car. Luz Haiheng actually enjoyed himself. There was a small tea table in the carriage with tea and snacks. He raised his hand to pour tea for Li Lauer and said, "What a coincidence. I was going to pick you up in the village, but Mr. Wen said that the Marquis was recuperating in the village and it was difficult to come in and out, so that's all. I don't want to see you here. Come on, hurry up and take you to see the excitement." Li Lauer was confused when he heard this. "Don't you live at home, Mr. Wen? I thought that Mr. Wen would take a break today, so I wanted to find him and ask him how it went." Luz Haiheng hesitated for a moment and whispered, "The Wen family's affairs are a bit complicated and I can't explain it for a while. In short, don't come here to find Mr. Wen in the future. Just go to me first, and I will send someone to help you find it. Mr. Wen, it's easier than coming here." Li Lauer frowned. He guessed that this involved some privacy of the Wen family. He didn't want to ask more questions, so he changed the topic. "What fun should we go to see?" End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 257. Chapter 257, The son wants to be taken care of, but the mother refuses to take care of him. "You'll know after you go there," Lu Haihang said with a smile. The carriage kept going forward, and in no time at all, we arrived at the busiest shopping street. This commercial street was originally the center of the city, with many shops. Buzwang, banks, taverns, tea houses, jewelry shops, calligraphy and painting shops, and rouge shops are all available. Since the capital was moved here, the population in the city has suddenly increased, and the shopping streets have become even more lively, as if they are exploding every day. Li Lauer had never been here before, so he opened the curtain to take a look. "Is it really lively here? I originally thought our hot spring valley was very good, but now it pales in comparison." "Haha, of course, people from the whole city come here to walk around," Lu Haihang said with a smile. "Although your hot spring valley is a good place, your family just refuses to let more people into the valley. It only lasts a day welcoming hundreds of guests." Li Lauer shook his head. "None of us in the village are greedy. We just want to live a peaceful life and make some income. Besides, the valley is a place for bathing. If there are too many guests, it is easy to cause trouble." Lu Haihang couldn't help but give a thumbs up. "I have to say, your family members are really very smart. You know, everyone wants to make more money." While the two were talking, the carriage stopped in front of a tea house. The two got out of the car, went directly upstairs, and entered a private room. Mr. Wen and Mrs. Kui were both in the house, and they were also surprised to see Li Lauer. "Why is Mr. Second here? What a coincidence." Li Lauer hurriedly saluted, blushing a little, and replied, "Mr. Wen, Mrs. Kui, just others. You are close to the family, so you naturally know that I have no fame and cannot bear the title of Sir, so you should call me Yisheng just fine." Mr. Wen and Mrs. Kui were not polite and invited him to sit down and drink tea together. Li Lauer was even more confused as to what could bring these three people together. But he didn't ask. Instead, he said something else. "Mr. Wen, my mother sewed 2 pairs of shoes for you and put them in Brother Liu's car. Don't forget to take them with you when you go back later." Mr. Wen had a smile in his eyes and responded quickly, "Okay, I'm tired from bothering my aunt again." Mrs. Kui also asked, "The day before yesterday, I asked sister-in-law Kyan to go back and deliver snacks to Fu Niu. I heard that she still has a low fever. How is she doing now?" This is a tea house after all, and Mrs. Kui was very cautious as she did not say Mao Ye because she was afraid that the walls might have airs. Li Lauer understood and replied, "I'm much better today. The fever has subsided. I'm just waiting to recover slowly." Li Lauer and the others went into the mountains to catch a lot of wild pigeons and stewed them in soup every day. "I heard that this is good for healing wounds." Everyone nodded and couldn't help but sigh. These people in Broken Gold Beach are really magical to say the least. They are just ordinary people, but they seem to have some strange abilities, making it easy for people to feel a sense of belonging. The dignified Marquis of Xinting, the emperor's cousin, holds a large number of troops. Even in this new capital, he is a person who is looked up to and envied by. As a result, the Marquis did not live in the Marquis mansion or go to banquets to make friends with the powerful, so he liked to stay in Sujintan. Even when he was seriously injured and on the verge of death, he did not return to Xindu. And the people in the village are indeed people who appreciate kindness. Even if their strength is very small, they try their best to repay. Not to mention the Marquis, there are 3 of them, the daughter of a great scholar, the former wife of the Marquis of Zhenbei, the censor from a scholarly family, and the eldest son of an established family. Isn't this moment just for the sake of the Li family, gathered here? In this world, money is easy to come by, but true love is hard to find. What they are doing is the sincerity of the Li family and the reality of Broken Gold Beach. At this moment, there was a sudden noise downstairs, and everyone turned sideways and looked out the window. Not far from the shopping street, a group of people came wearing sackcloth and mourning. The carriage in the middle of the team was also pulling a dark coffin. There were spiritual flags around the carriage, which made it look very scary. The man at the front looked to be in his 30s, scattering paper money as he walked. The two women behind him were crying miserably. "Dad, woohoo, why did you just leave like that? What if you left us behind? Dad, you died unjustly, you died so miserably. God is blind." There were already a lot of people on the shopping street, but suddenly such a group of people came. Everyone was surprised and moved to the shops on both sides to start talking. What happened? I don't know. Listen to this, boss. This man has something to say when he does. At this time, the motorcade came to a stop in front of a restaurant. The man in the lead threw paper money all over the floor, and finally pointed at the door of the restaurant and yelled, "Look, everyone, it's the Sci-fi in the meal poison and kill my father." All the spectators were shocked. If a restaurant owner poisons the food, won't everyone who eats there be in trouble? The two women also cried pitifully. My dad had dinner here the day before yesterday. After returning home, he kept running to the hut. The doctor couldn't stop it even after prescribing medicine he couldn't hold on last night, and finally went there. Woo, Sci-fi has killed people. Is there anyone who can make the decision for us people? There were many people eating in Sci-fi. Seeing this, they all threw away their chopsticks and ran out, looking panicked. They had just eaten a lot. Could they have been poisoned as well? Some people were scratching their throats, and some were livid. They were all extremely angry. The shopkeeper and the boy from Sci-fi also ran out and hurriedly comforted everyone. "Dear guests, please don't panic. Our Sci-fi has always had an excellent reputation. How could we do such a thing? It must be a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding." There were also neighbors from the left and right shops who came forward to help. "Yes, Sci-fi has been open for more than 10 years, and nothing like this has ever happened before. Yesterday, I invited friends here for dinner, and there was no problem. It must be a misunderstanding." The restaurant owner kept raising his hands in gratitude and saluting, "Thank you all for speaking out. It happened so suddenly, and I am totally confused." The middle-aged man wearing xiao didn't care about this and started to curse, "You are all neighbors, we are all the same, so of course you have to help Sci-fi speak out. But my father is dead and was killed by Sci-fi. I came to your boss yesterday. Yes, your boss said he wanted to give me an explanation, but as of today there has been no movement. This means that our family is easy to bully. My father died miserably. He was a good man and died of diarrhea. As a son, I didn't show my filial piety to him, and he was gone. Dad, I'm sorry for your son." "Ah, Dad, you died so miserably." The middle-aged man became more and more sad as he talked. He threw his head up and cried loudly, beating his chest with his fists, making a loud banging sound. Such pain and regret, everyone who saw it felt sad. The son wants to be taken care of, but the mother doesn't care for him. The restaurant owner was sweating profusely in anxiety. From what he said, the owner must have known about the matter and wanted to press it down, but couldn't reach an agreement, so they came to make trouble. "Come to the boss quickly," he urged the young man to go to the south of the city to find someone. The young man squeezed out of the crowd and quickly disappeared. The family seemed determined to fight to the end. The crying and howling became louder and louder, blocking half of the street. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 258. Chapter 258. Bad things spread thousands of miles. Good things don't go out, but bad things spread thousands of miles. Almost instantly, everyone knew that Sci-fi's food was delicious. The tea house is right opposite Sci-fi. Many people can see it clearly and are talking about it. Sihiju is the property of the Wang family. Wang Zhengkaiu is a reliable person. He has been running the business for so many years and the business has been good. Why did something like this go wrong? I heard that Wang Yuanwei seems to have a worse headache. Maybe he can't take care of business. As we were talking, someone suddenly shouted, "Oh, Mr. Wang is here." The crowd of people watching in front of the restaurant found a way out and saw Wang Fu carrying Wang Yuanwei on his back, followed by the waiter from the restaurant, who hurriedly arrived. In addition to the elegant and handsome Wang Yuan who used to be, I don't know what happened. Now his hair is a little disheveled, his cheeks are thin, his eyes are black and blue, and he looks very haggard. Arrived in front of the restaurant, Wang Fu put Wang Yuanwei down, and he and everyone else cupped their hands and said with a wry smile, "I've caused trouble for you all." Everyone nodded in embarrassment and found it difficult to respond. It was the middle-aged man wearing a morning hat who stepped forward and asked loudly, "Wang Zhengkaiu, you scoundrel. Last night you told me to give my family an explanation, but then there was no news. Tell me, was my father poisoned to death by your restaurant?" Wang Yuanwei frowned and wanted to speak, but suddenly he held his head and the pain made him unable to stand still. Wang Fu and the shopkeeper quickly helped him, and the shopkeeper quickly asked, "My boss has a headache again?" Wang Fu whispered back, "Yes, it has been several days, otherwise how could I not take care of this?" The shopkeeper is anxious. He is still waiting for his employer to make the decision. What can he do now? The middle-aged man is unwilling to give up and cries and howls. He must be given an explanation by Sihiju. Wang Yuanwei reluctantly stood and comforted in a low voice, "Don't worry, I will definitely give your family an explanation. Our Sihiju has never been like this in the 20 years since we opened. What explanation can you give me so that my father can come back to life again? My father has worked hard all his life and just enjoyed some good things. He came to your place to eat something good, and he was poisoned to death by you. Oh, Dad, you died so miserably. Father, if you have a spirit in heaven, just take a look. This evil man tried to kill you and he still refuses to admit it." Everyone in the funeral procession was crying and rushing forward noisily. The servant and the shopkeeper were frightened and tried their best to protect the king and retreated. Yuan Wang's face turned pale. He wanted to say something, but blood spurted out as soon as he opened his mouth. The bright red blood was sprinkled on the bluestone steps, and it was particularly conspicuous when it was dazzled by the sun. The people around him were so frightened that they retreated far away. Even the people in the family wearing mourning were stunned. In the tea house, Li Laoer saw this and was so anxious that he wanted to jump out of the window. Mr. Wen and Luz Haihang quickly pulled him back with quick eyesight and hands, and whispered comfort, "Don't worry, it's all fake." Fake. Li Laoer was in a daze. "No way, my eldest brother vomited blood, really vomited blood. He has been in Sujintan recently." Although he knows that his eldest brother wants to ruin the Wang family's business, he doesn't know how to do it. Could it be that this is all fake, but how can vomiting blood be fake? Mr. Wen pulled him to sit down and explained in a low voice, "Manager Yes sent a few helpers here, and they are all good at charlatanism, and this vomiting of blood is one of them. Even the troublemakers below were found by them, so don't worry, your elder brother is fine." Luz Haihang also nodded. This Sihiju was founded by the old man of the Wang family. What he is most proud of is the reputation of Sihiju. "Your eldest brother insists on operating here first." Li Laoer breathed a sigh of relief. Looking down, he saw that the commotion in front of the restaurant had become even more intense. Wang Yuanwei fainted after vomiting blood. The shopkeeper and Wang Fu were scared to death. Wang Fu carried Wang Yuanwei on his back and ran home. The shopkeeper also wanted to follow, but Dai Xiao's family refused to let him go. "No, you can't leave. If you leave, who should we ask to reason with?" The shopkeeper really had no choice, and his boss didn't know whether he was alive or dead. He could only say, "There is money at the counter." I'll get you 100 taels first. You send it to the old man first. The rest will have to wait until our boss is ready. The middle-aged man Dai Xiaosu also felt that there was no more benefit to be squeezed out today, so he nodded. I sent the old man a message first, but you still have to give me an explanation, otherwise I will sue the government. The shopkeeper quickly took the money and gave it to the man. The funeral procession finally moved forward again and passed through the shopping street. I don't know where it went. After such an incident, who would dare to stay and continue eating? Sihija became empty in the blink of an eye. The shopkeeper had no choice but to close the store and run to the south of the city to see how his boss was doing. Such a busy and famous Sihija has just closed its doors. Those who know sigh, those who don't know are curious. Rumors are like fermented dough. In a short time, everyone in the streets knows about it. Some people talked about how Mr. Wang founded Sihiju and how prosperous it was. Some people say that Wang Yuan has been prospering since he took over. Someone even mentioned that back then, Mr. Wang was seriously injured and was picked up by Mrs. Wang. He didn't know his name or where his hometown was. In order to repay his kindness, he married into the Wang family and had children with Miss Wang. They were in love for half their lives. People in the world have always been so strange and contradictory. They shout that it is impolite to inquire into people's privacy, but their ears prefer to listen. Hence, all the old affairs of the Wang family were uncovered and told thoroughly. Some people lamented, some sighed, some sympathized, and some rejoiced. The Wang family and Sihiju have become a good topic for everyone after dinner. In the tea house, Li Laoer was a little startled when he saw that the front door of the restaurant suddenly became quiet. Although he is smart and smooth, his vision is limited. What happened today was the first time I saw him. A good restaurant, it was poured out as soon as it was told, and it didn't even take half an hour. Lu Haihang closed the window and couldn't help but clicked his tongue and shook his head. I have to say that Zhensheng is really cruel. He has been running this restaurant for many years and he destroyed it as soon as he said it. Reputation is the hardest thing to accumulate and the easiest thing to damage. I'm afraid no one will come to eat again. Mr. Wen raised his hand to pour tea for several people and said, to others, what they see is the reputation of Sihija for more than 10 years, but in Zhensheng's eyes, this is his shame. He has worked hard for so many years, he has put in so much effort to keep his enemy's business, and only by destroying it can he let out a bad breath. Mrs. Kui nodded, if it were me, I would do the same. Li Laoer took a sip of tea and asked slowly, what else does my eldest brother want to do next? Don't worry, your elder brother has planned everything, and you won't suffer any losses. There will be other things happening in the Wang family's business soon. When the money is needed, it will be a matter of course to sell this restaurant. Lu Haihang comforted Li Laoer, pointed to himself and said, the new owner is here, but I am a passing of wealth. I will return this place to your elder brother in a year and a half. Li Laoer nodded. It was a pity that such a prosperous shop in such a busy city closed its doors. He wanted to ask a few more questions, but thinking about it carefully, even asking clearly would not help. If the Li family was exposed, it would ruin the eldest brother's plan. We are far away and cannot go into the city often. Please worry about the things here. But if there is a need for our home, you must send someone to tell me. In order for my eldest brother to return home safely, our brothers are not afraid of anything. After saying that, he stood up and saluted, prompting Mr. Wen and Lu Haihang to help him quickly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 259. Chapter 259, God's law is clear, retribution is not good. We are all one family, and we are separated by saying this. Yes, we are here to help your brother, don't worry. In addition, after you go back, take good care of the injured nobleman. If the Wang family intervenes in this matter, you will still need help from that nobleman. Everyone discussed for a while and then went downstairs to disperse. Li Lauer found a calligraphy and painting shop, bought some paper, ink, and some daily necessities, and then hired a carriage to go home. In this world, every time a mother gives birth to a child, it is like having an extra heart, liver, and lungs hanging outside her body. If there is any trouble, she will immediately know about it and will be extremely concerned about it. After her second son entered the city early in the morning, Mrs. Li would go to the door to look at her from time to time, looking forward to his early return. In the courtyard of Yes family, a large felt blanket was placed under the eaves. A quilt was spread on the blanket, a small table was placed, and some snacks, fruits, and hot tea were placed. The 4 large screens blocked the slightly cold autumn wind, leaving only the warmth of autumn under the eaves. Mr. Ye is lying on his side, leaning on the thick cushion, flipping a book in his hand, and touching the little fat girl in front of him from time to time to prevent her from getting cold. Ji-Yin kicked her little feet and flipped through a booklet in her hand. Each page in the booklet is full of beautiful pictures, with a few simple sentences written underneath, similar to the comic strips in the previous life. She laughed as she turned over the fruit, forgetting to bite the fruit in her hand. Mrs. Li walked in when she heard the noise. Seeing that her granddaughter was so comfortable, she said to Mr. Ye, "This girl seems to really understand. A school will be built in the village soon, and she will be sent to study in 2 years. When Ji-Yin heard this, she couldn't help but despair when she thought about how she would sit with a bunch of little carrots, shaking their heads and reciting the words. Could it be that if you live your life again, you still can't escape reading, and it's even more boring? Fortunately, Mr. Ye didn't know if he felt her despair, so he smiled and persuaded, "Auntie, don't worry, Fu Niu is smarter than other children. It's really counterproductive to trap her in the school. By then she will be sensible. Ask her what she wants to learn, and I'll help her find a master." Ji-Yin's eyes lit up immediately. She turned around, hugged young Master Yes' arm and shook her like a puppy with meat and bones. "Uncle is the best, Fu Niu likes uncle the most." Old Mrs. Li couldn't laugh or cry. She raised her hand and patted her granddaughter's butt. "Fat girl, you're so mean-spirited. You're too lazy to study, aren't you?" Ji-Yin quickly ran to hug her grandma's neck. "Fu Niu is not lazy, Fu Niu is helping grandma at home." "Humph, you sleep in the sun every day and talk about working, who are you trying to coax?" Mrs. Li scolded her, but she smiled broadly. Finally, she turned around and started to worry again. "This girl is greedy and lazy, what will I do when I grow up? I'm afraid I won't even be able to find my husband's family." Although he did not formally kowtow to serve tea and acknowledge his godmother, Mr. Ye joined the ranks of those who doted on his daughter without thinking. He really took this question seriously and replied seriously, "Then find some good men who have no father or mother. Whether it's a wife or a child, Fu Niu doesn't have to go too far from home." Mrs. Li was stunned for a moment, and she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I was just saying casually, you are really planning to fall in love with her. Fu Niu will be difficult to control in the future, and there is one more person to pamper her." Mr. Ye was not joking. He said seriously, "It is best for Fu Niu to find a son-in-law when she grows up. Otherwise, if the man has 3 wives and 4 concubines, Fu Niu will be wronged." Mrs. Li blinked her eyes twice, thinking about how her precious granddaughter would be left out in the cold and shed tears. Yes, this matter really needs to be considered early. Hearing the good news was full of dark things. She was only 2 years old. Is it too early to talk about getting married? "Mom, I'm back." Li Lauer came to the door and saw that his yard was empty, so he went to the next door. Ji-yin was barefoot and rushed over immediately. Second uncle, Fu Niu misses you. Li Laoer laughed loudly, picked up his niece, and touched the tip of her nose. You are thinking about the good things that your second uncle bought you. Ji-yin's smiling eyes were like crescent moons, and her little body twisted and twisted. I want to delicious, I miss you even more. Mrs. Li now carried her granddaughter's shoes up and put them on while asking, is the city busy? Have you seen Mr. Wen? Yes, Mr. Wen is fine. I also bought pen and ink. Li Laoer was afraid that his mother would ask about his eldest brother, so he pointed to the basket outside the door. Mom, I also bought a piece of meat. Let's make dumplings to eat at night. The good news clapped her hands happily, causing the old lady to glare at her angrily. Greedy cat. Li Laoer hugged his niece and walked inside. Mom, I'll talk to Mr. Ye. You can go home. Okay, I'll cut the vegetables first, wait for Hong Ying to come back and mix the stuffing, and make dumplings in the evening. Mrs. Laotian carried the basket and left with a smile. Li Laoer sat on the felt blanket, put his niece aside, took out half a pack of sesame candy from his arms, and gave it to his niece to sweeten her mouth. He then talked about the matter of Sihiju, and finally said, Mr. Wen said that in more than half a month, the matter will almost come to an end. Mr. Ye nodded, don't worry, if the Wang family comes forward, I will naturally be the one to deal with it. After saying that, he sighed again, your eldest brother is really good. If he had continued the scientific examination back then, he might not even have a place in the court now. It's such a pity. Li Laoer also gritted his teeth with hatred, that's why I support the eldest brother in revenge. Otherwise, we just hope that the eldest brother comes back safely. Normal grudges will be over when they can be over, but the Wang family is too cruel and hateful. The law of heaven is clear, retribution is not good, the retribution of the Wang family will come now. Mr. Ye comforted. Mrs. Li brought 2 snacks over. She happened to hear a tale and asked, what's coming? Li Laoer quickly changed the conversation, it's okay, mother, I'll have a few chats with Mr. Ye. Fu Niu is eating candy, don't give her snacks yet. Sure enough, Mrs. Li was successfully diverted, and she reached out and snatched the paper bag from her granddaughter's hand. Why are you giving Fu Niu candy again? Be careful of rotten teeth. After saying that, Mrs. Li put down the snacks, took the sesame candy and left, leaving behind the good news with her big eyes blinking and a look of grievance on her face. Her shield seems to be very easy for everyone to use. Li Laoer touched his nose and comforted his niece, second uncle, I will buy it for you next time and secretly feed it to you. Ji-yin didn't believe it at all, and fell down on the mattress with all fours in the air, making Mr. Ye couldn't help laughing. Let's not talk about the peace and happiness here in the Li family, but in the courtyard of the Wang family in the south of the city, the shopkeeper Sihiju was running around anxiously. Seeing Wang Fu come out of the study with the medicine bowl, he quickly grabbed Wang Fu and asked in a low voice, how is my boss? He was fine before, so why is he suddenly so seriously ill? Wang Fu shook his head and replied with a grimace, it's not sudden, my boss has been sick for half a month, it's just that the headache is an old problem for many years. Madam has seen many doctors, but they all said that it can't be cured. This period of time, the pain became even worse. I heard something happened last night, and my boss wanted to investigate, but he was half asleep and groggy, so he delayed it. I didn't expect that the family was so useless that they immediately started making trouble. The boss was so worried. The shopkeeper's mouth felt bitter after hearing this, and he wanted to ask again. There was a commotion at the door again, and someone hurried in, shouting, my boss, something serious has happened. The third update is here. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 260. Chapter 260. The wall fell and everyone pushed it. What are you shouting? My boss is sick, Shopkeeper Lu couldn't help but pulled the steward and scolded him in a low voice. The steward shook off the shopkeeper's hand and jumped anxiously. "Shopkeeper Lu, why are you here? Come on, I want to see my boss. Something bad has happened. The ship has sunk and the goods have been robbed. It's over, it's all over." Shopkeeper Lu was stunned for a moment, and suddenly remembered that his family had collaborated with others to transport a shipload of valuable things back from the south, including fine silks, spices, medicinal materials, etc. Even though they live all over the world, they still have two rare seasonings that are also on the shopping list. Could it be that the ship sank? Manager Liu's expression finally changed. Maybe he heard some noise in the house, and Wang Fu helped Wang Yuanwei and walked out. Wang Yuanwei's face was pale and his lips were blue. Now his eyes were red with anxiety and he asked, "Wang Gui, what's going on? Tell me quickly." The steward named Wang Gui knelt down and said with a choked voice, "Master, we shipped the goods back from the south. We were still 200 miles away from home, but a group of water bandits ran out of nowhere and boarded the boat in the middle of the night. Caught us all. The goods were robbed and the boat was broken into pieces. Fortunately, the group of water bandits did not hurt our lives. Later, we were rescued by a passing boatman and went to a nearby county to report to the official, but the official said that the water bandits, you are a veteran, there is no way you can find the goods. You, does heaven want to destroy my King Zhengkaiu?" Wang Yuanwei was so furious that he spurted out another mouthful of blood and fell down. Shopkeeper Lu and Wang Gui rushed forward and were frightened. Since his wife was not there and there was no one in charge, Wang Fu called a boy to ask for the doctor. Shopkeeper Lu and Wang Gui were in the room watching their boss change clothes, so they left. Shopkeeper Lu pulled Wang Gui and asked, "If I remember correctly, the cargo on the ship is not just for our family, right?" Wang Gui nodded vigorously and almost shed tears. "Our family only has 5,000 taels of goods, and the remaining 15,000 taels belong to others. Originally, we took turns going south, and this time it was our family's turn to purchase and them. We also signed a deed before, and if the goods were damaged, our family would have to pay for it. Compensation will be 20% off." Shopkeeper Lu was speechless for a long time, and his heart was trembling. This time, not only did the Wang family lose 5,000 taels, but they also had to pay out 12,000 taels of silver. The Wang family has suffered some bad luck. After today's trouble, Sihaija's reputation has been ruined, and it will definitely not be able to continue operating in the future. Now that I am so broke, I can save nearly 20,000 taels in one go. What's more serious is that my boss is so ill that he is almost on the verge of death. Is the Wang family about to be defeated? Then what are these slaves going to do?" At this moment, the boy had already invited the doctor back, and Wang Fu quickly took him in. Wang Gui didn't do anything, but shopkeeper Lu frowned. This doctor's surname is Sunday. He knows him well, and his medical skills are among the best in the city. But this man has a problem. He has an outspoken temper, a loud mouth, and cannot keep secrets. Let me ask you, who wants to have any illness known to outsiders the next day? Therefore, few people in the city are willing to seek medical treatment from him on weekdays, unless there is really no way to deal with the serious condition, like Wang Yuanwei. After a long while, Dr. Sun came out and asked, "Find a quiet place. I want to write a prescription and ask the medicine boy to go back and grab the medicine quickly." Shopkeeper Lu and Wang Gui quickly led him into the next room. After serving him with pen and ink, the little medicine boy took the prescription and ran away. Shopkeeper Lu couldn't understand the prescription, so he asked in a low voice, "Dr. Sun, what's going on with our boss? Maybe it will get better soon? There is some trouble in the business at home, and we are waiting for our boss to deal with it." Dr. Sun glared and said angrily, "People are about to die, and you are only thinking about treatment. How is that possible when you ask the patient to be alive and well? I am a doctor, not Jinxian. Besides, what were you doing in the early years? Even if this disease had been diagnosed and treated 5 or 6 years in advance, it would not have been fatal until now. Wang Gui opened his mouth to refute, but was stopped by shopkeeper Lu. Shopkeeper Lu arranged tea and snacks for Dr. Sun, and then took Wang Gui out. Brother, you stay here, I have to go back to the restaurant to deal with it. Someone in Sahija died of diarrhea. There was a big fuss earlier. My boss can't let him bother with this. I have to go and ask him. Ah, there is another thing. Wang Gui suddenly felt that something was not good, and he did not want to stay. But at this time, Wang Fu came out with a small box and said, "My boss, could you please take care of my boss? I need to boil some medicine and drink it. My boss has asked me to do some errands, and I have to deal with them immediately." Shopkeeper Lu took the opportunity and left with Wang Fu. Wang Gui had no choice but to stay. Shopkeeper Lu sent Wang Fu off and looked back at the Wang family's courtyard gate from a distance with a complicated expression. The Wang family is wealthy and has hired numerous doctors over the years, but just now Dr. Sun said that his boss's headache was delayed until now and he is dying. The things involved were too complicated, and he didn't want to, nor did he dare to. Nowadays, in such a chaotic situation, the most important thing is to escape unscathed. He took a deep breath, turned around and walked away. When I came back, the sun was already setting in the west, and there were many people watching the excitement gathered in front of the Wang family courtyard. From time to time, they gathered together to talk, which made shopkeeper Lu panic. He hurried forward and asked, "What happened?" A nearby neighbor recognized shopkeeper Lu and said, "Go in and take a look. I heard that Mr. Wang is seriously ill and someone is coming to collect debts." Shopkeeper Liu's face turned dark. Sure enough, as soon as he entered the outer courtyard, he saw a chair placed under the eaves of the corridor. Wang Yuanwei sat slumped on it, his face pale and weak. Opposite him stood two groups of people. One group was a businessman who had good relations with the Wang family on weekdays, and the other group was the shopkeepers of several of his own shops. Several shopkeepers secretly waved to him to come over. At this time, the few merchants who had made good friends spoke, "Brother Wang, it's not like we are adding insult to injury. It's true that every family is not well off." "That's right, Brother Wang, we agreed at the beginning who would be responsible for shipping the goods. We didn't have any problems those few times, but your family encountered water bandits this time. Our family bought 5,000 taels of goods this time. According to the contract, Brother Wang returned me 4,000 taels, so I also lost 1,000 taels. I am a human sitting at home, and disaster comes from the sky. This who are you looking for to reason with?" "Me too, I'm waiting for this new batch of goods in the shop. It's too late to send people to find the goods immediately. Not only do I lose money, but I also miss the peak season of winter." Everyone was talking and complaining, and everyone felt like the sky was falling. Wang Yuan waved his hand to signal everyone to shut up, and then looked at Wang Fu. Wang Fu's hands trembled and he took a box and stepped forward. Wang Yuanwei opened it and took out a stack of banknotes. The eyes of all the creditors immediately lit up. Sure enough, according to the deed, everyone quickly got the compensation money they deserved. Although we have lost something, it is still better than nothing. They encountered water bandits unexpectedly and Wang Yuanwei was seriously ill. Even if they really refused to admit or compensate, they had nothing to do. Unexpectedly, Wang Yuanwei would be so happy, which actually made everyone blush. After all, we had gotten along well for many years before, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to go south together to purchase together. End of this chapter.